Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined by our professional of the year, Grant D. Venerable. That's right, Dr. Venerable, our chemist, our scientist, our professor, our doctor, our writer, our philanthropist, in the process of writing his memoirs. Welcome back today. How are you doing?
I'm fine. The desert is good for me.
Yeah. For those that don't know, you've been in the process of a move and you're settling in, and that's a whole new other feeling and, reviving.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
What it's doing is it's taken me away from my previous normal, and so it's leaving space for me to see things more expansively.
Yep.
But also what's coming into focus as I put on years and extra months of existence, these things are fitting together better. Now that's what gets exciting, because here I'm reviewing one of my latest issues of Science. I don't know if you can see that. Science magazine is the weekly magazine of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. So that takes on all fields of science and mathematics and engineering and computer science, plus a few other fields like philosophy and economics, politics. And there's three key articles that I had to bring to the attention of our listeners, our viewers, because they're emblematic of what's going on right now in the United States. Last time I left off with Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Talking about how Silicon Valley has morphed, changed over the last 40 to 50 years, but especially the last 30. AI has come along and it has affected every way that business is done. And I can be more focused on that now because it's really what is back of three articles that I earmarked to speak to one of my health care professionals about. And the first one is more immediate, political, economic, scientifically important. It's entitled "Trump Fires Entire Body Overseeing the National Science Foundation." Now, in and of itself, it doesn't really say that much.
Yeah, of course.
But dismissal of the NSF board is widely seen as latest move to erase the NSF's independence, which is supposed to be everything. All of our government agencies are supposed to be able to act in an independent, nonpartisan way. And that's what this is about. But it fits in with all of the other insights that I've been getting up here in the high desert. It's a high desert because we're 2,200 feet above sea level in this area, just across the highway from the Joshua Tree National Monument. And on the other side of Joshua Tree, that is south of these Joshua Tree Mountains, that are they top out at 5,000 or 6,000 feet elevation.
Wow.
But behind that, to the south, is this plateau that's just about at sea level. And the most famous city in that plateau is Palm Springs. And Palm Springs has been there forever in Southern California. And it's just a beautiful, delightful place to go visit. But because it's at sea level, it gets hotter there.
Yeah.
When it gets hot up here in the high desert, you might think the high desert would be hotter, but it's actually cooler. It's usually like 10 to 15 degrees hotter than Palm Springs.
Really?
But that makes it even more interesting. Well, when you go on a plane, try to sit where you're behind a seat that has a little TV screen there, and you can plug into all kinds of interesting information about the flight, about the topography that you're flying over. But one of the key pieces is that you can look at about the progress of your flight is its elevation in the atmosphere, the troposphere. And of course those high flying jets go anywhere from 33,000 to 48 to 40,000 feet elevation. But you can watch the little dial on your screen
Okay.
that shows the changes in altitude and your distance from your destination and your distance from your departure point. And I love to look at that because once that plane leaves the runway, it's still only a few hundred feet above the runway, and then it starts picking up altitude.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, for me personally, is that the house I just moved out of is about 25 miles south of the Atlanta
Wow.
Hartsfield-Jackson
Okay.
Airport. And if I'm flying to the north or to points to the south or the east, that plane, if it's going off out to the west, and it gets up off that runway pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
but what it does when it gets over Interstate 85
Okay.
is that it begins taking a sharp left turn, and it's headed into a U-turn, and
Oh,
it
wow.
takes about 18 miles
Okay.
before it can complete the U-turn.
Oh,
And it's about almost 10,000 feet elevation when it completes that U-turn. Well,
okay.
my house I just lived in Tyrone, Georgia, uh, is when it hits 10,000 feet. I have seen this. Sometimes I sit on the side of the plane where I can look right down on my neighborhood, my subdivision. I can pick out my house because I can tell the trees,
Yep.
the neighbors' houses, my house. But right there, it's at 10,000 feet, heading
Okay.
up higher and higher for like 35,000. But the other than that, it is interesting to me because I'm not going to say what I really want to say, but if you live near an airport, you're always going to be subject to uh, burnt fuel exhaust.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. I could imagine the black soot coming in on the windows. I had that. I
That's
lived near LaGuardia Airport for quite a few
there.
years. Ah.
You understand
Mm-hmm.
entirely. And that's something that has to be addressed at some point that you depend on the National Science Foundation to address. But if it doesn't have its complement of properly educated, experienced directors and professional scientists, it's hard to do that. So let
Yeah.
me move into what I left out the last time
Sure.
about Silicon Valley. And I was about to talk about it, and then I didn't quite get back to it.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
You might remember I said something. I was hired in a very unusual way. I went to a company in downtown San Francisco that specializes in counseling employees of firms that want to get promotions. They want to
Okay.
do better with what they're doing,
Yep.
or they want a better job. And so they go to this company and you pay a little fee and they give you a whole deep, in-depth education because of the CEOs that are retired and other vice presidents that are there. And they're there to advise people how to do it. And I went to them through one of my non-logical
Okay.
routes. You know, we have a logical or a source of knowledge and ideas, and we have what we call an intuitive, more creative, open-ended way of doing things. And so that's how I found this company in the first place. And I'd love to go into that sometime because it's a thought area that's left out. And I'm going to kick that area up against the wall right now because I'm seeing it more as AI,
Yeah.
artificial
Of course.
intelligence, supervises the kinds of articles that the news media is putting out. And they're coming out with all of these data points on how well does a graduate from a college, how soon does it take them to get a job in their major?
Yeah.
What are the best majors for high pay? What are the worst majors, if you don't mind, low pay? Which I am going to say, and I said it before, those are the wrong questions and the
Yeah.
wrong kinds of information to put out there because nobody knows what to do with it because often it's just frustrating. There's not a, a causal relationship between your college degree and the pay
Yeah.
that you're going to get
Yeah.
or the time it takes you to get that first job. So that's why I'm going to use one of the younger generation terms. How I got my job in Silicon Valley was wild,
Yeah.
but I
Tell us.
followed the education of the company that I went
Yeah.
to get a job in industry and not necessarily Silicon Valley. I could have got it in a more traditional company, but by the tests that they gave me in the interviews, it was clear that I needed to be in a high tech company to
Yeah.
use the kinds of intelligence and education I had.
Yeah.
Well, the traditional logic of hiring, whether it's in a university or in industry, is to match your major field with some job that requires the great knowledge from that major field. Not always true. Not enough true to do all the fussing that AI is causing uh, these career these great career articles that they're putting out there
Yeah.
because I was probably one of only one or two people in Silicon Valley that got my job the way I did without degree one related to computers or electrical engineering. So how did I do that? It's because I went through the back door, which
Yeah.
turned out to be the right door. I
Yeah.
was taught how to get through the right door. So, first step, write the CEO of the country, of the company, and say, I'm interested in your working for your company, and I believe I can offer certain talents that you may not already have and that's kind of the starter. And you look at the where you get your response because you usually don't hear back from the CEO. Occasionally you do, but I heard back from someone who was an employee of
Okay.
human resources, and she took an interest in what I said in my letter. No resume yet. You don't send a resume at that stage. You just send a cover letter that tells something about you and what kinds of things you think about, what kinds of uh, skills, talents, ideas that you play around with. Well, it was interesting enough that this woman forwarded my cover letter to the director of human relations or the director of personnel. And that person thought my response was interesting enough
Yeah.
so that that director of personnel, maybe anyway, I got to forward it to the vice president
Of course.
of software, computer software applications. And he wanted an appointment with me, and I had an appointment with him. I had several appointments with him, but
Mm-hmm.
it took about a couple of months to really,
Okay.
for him to get to know me, for me to get to know him. And he was high enough in the company so that he could say, wait a minute, we're talking about you're being doing one thing. And he said, maybe that's not the way we should go. I happen to have a requisition from personnel that will let me bring you
Send it
in
back.
as anything I want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. So I did not have I couldn't list that I had it was for a senior systems programmer. That was just the name of the slot to
Yeah.
get me in on. I didn't know beans about senior system programming, or at least I didn't think I did until he began to talk and I began to respond. And that's what gave him an idea that the really far seeing people in that industry have always had. Well, wait a minute. You can do this and you can do artistry. You know how to make diagrams. You can communicate. I want to bring you in as a communicator because I think you'd be a perfect creative communicator between the upper management here and the middle management here and the professionals who actually do the job of designing and making the
Oh,
products.
excuse me.
What Silicon Valley of the 1980s and before that, what was the unifying theme that brought their success? The theme was one word, describable by one word: design. I think I mentioned that briefly before, but it's design. And I got in there and realized this company was emphasizing our job is creative design. That word has to be on the tip of everyone's tongue and on the forefront of their brains as long as they work in this company. I was in a startup that started with great vigor, with vigilance and energy. And they thought that I had a really excellent way to communicate design, and in fact, what design should look like. So, to make a really deep, long story short, um, I discovered design in the hands of the marketing people who have to find the market
Yeah.
for this computer or a
Yeah.
service that's provided by computers is to design it for
Yeah.
marketability, design it for comfort, customer acceptance, design it for customer purpose, design it for customer service, and then all the other branches of the company, such as those people who design the computer, the engineers. So it's design for engineering quality. And then it goes to the manufacturing people, design for how it can be manufactured to produce the highest quality product. And then design for maintenance. Once a customer gets the product, they want to be able to maintain it. Design for everything else you can think of.
Yeah.
Design, design, design. So I came up with actual designs that I could draw on the computer or with my hands and convert it to a computer design. And that was around 1983, if you can imagine that.
Right.
And I could see the company moving forward, steadily moving upward until my division was taken over by quality and productivity. So we were the advocates for how do you design a system to produce high quality,
Hmm.
high productivity for the customer that purchases it. All right, that's all we need to go
Yeah.
through there. Except to say the industry of Silicon Valley, whether it's in California or the state of Washington or Idaho or back East Coast, Chicago, St. Paul, Minnesota, wherever it was, um, it all changed. It changed. It began changing in the 1990s. It changed because of the influence of what we call the venture capitalists. The whole idea about venture capitalism, it changed. What happened was venture capitalizing a company and its products. It changed to be about how to make money. Venture capital, in other words, to make as much money as possible. Not just to make money to have a successful product, but beyond that, it was simply to make the shareholders richer, make the CEO, the executive committee of the company richer, just rich. So the mission changed from design of quality machinery and services to how can we make as much money as possible? Now, that might sound silly, but it's not. That's exactly what happened. So the whole class of people who were in venture capitalizing a company, they were no longer interested, and they lost their interest in customer service. I know that myself. Everyone that has a laptop saw that happen to some of the great companies that were out there, but they changed because of their venture capitalists. So the company I was in, it changed. Everything changed. And so instead of going, more and more quality, it's just more and more money, more profit at whatever cost. But the main costs, and everyone that's close to computers today knows it, unless they had been around, they knew it if they were around in the 80s or the early 90s and before that, they know the customer service it got practically lost. If something happens to your computer, don't call the company.
Nope.
They don't want to hear from you.
They
don't have a phone number even to call.
Nope.
Even the phone company doesn't have a phone they want you to call. They say, leave us alone. And there's plenty of people now that can attest to that. So that's really where I want to start out today as I get back to my science magazine. One of the things that companies used to look actively for was creativity, and they automatically, at the higher levels of administration, realized that the most creative people in the society are popularly known as the artists, the poets, the dancers, the actors, all of those creative type of people, and the novelists, the writers, the poets. So they knew you could not have a successful technology company and technology jobs and services unless you had artists on board, where that was what their training was, and it's what their intuition is about, because that's what translates to the design engineers. And that's why so many of the engineers themselves happen to be interested in the arts or happen to study arts. Musicians, that's another big plus for people to get hired into Silicon Valley, at least those companies that understand that. So imagine, can't make a good computer product unless you have people that understand the opera, the symphony orchestras, or popular music, the music that sustains film. The film industry is really deeply rooted into the creative entities. Now, let me get to these articles here.
Sure.
One is another kind of thing that, let's see, I already talked about the National Science Foundation, but there is another one. It's called Tracking the Turning Point in Alzheimer's Disease. Now, I'm going to say a word that not everyone may understand, because it's a word out of biochemistry and physiology. A blood biomarker reveals the mechanistic shift from amyloid to tau pathology. What is that? Well, that requires some just a little bit of talking about. And so that's what the next part of this article is about. Alzheimer's disease, AD, is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder defined by the accumulation of amyloid beta plaques, tau pathology, TAU, tau, neuroinflammation, synaptic dysfunction, and
Okay.
neuronal loss, with pathology developing behind that years before the onset of memory impairment. Why am I saying that? I'm saying it because I'm supposed to be in that age bracket where neurodegeneration starts or is well underway or has already done its job in leading up to Alzheimer's. What's happening is we're finding degenerative, not just Alzheimer's, but dementia is setting in at younger aged human beings in their teenage. The question is, why is it setting in? It's the reasons get into this article, but there's even more reasons than are just in this article. And it has to do with what I just talked about in terms of who does industry hire to come in to make the advanced products. They get sloppy. They get so that they're not looking at what they need to be looking at. And so they're not doing what they should be doing for American society. We shouldn't have to be looking at why is neurodegeneration affecting teenagers, young people in their 20s, in their 30s. The message is that Alzheimer's is setting in at a lower age. And because there's a limitation of what biomarkers, a biomarker is a particular molecule that can be detected with the right chemical instruments. If you can see a biomarker that predicts that, the first stages of Alzheimer are not far away. So that's why it's important for that high-tech part of the chemical industry to discover biomarkers that mark the onset of dementia much, much earlier than they can catch them right now. If they catch them earlier, there's a chance that it can be intervened. But as of now, because of just the way that the curves are looking on this picture there, it shows the graphs about if you miss a critical biomarker, but you have no symptoms, none of degeneration, neurodegeneration, it's probably too late by then. That is the conundrum that we're dealing with. It's not going to really ring a bell for, I think, most of the human population until it begins to affect an individual citizen or someone in their families. So right now, it's something that happens to other people, but you might have a friend around the block, he has Alzheimer's, or he has early onset, all of this and that. But that requires a tremendous development, investment in chemistry and physics and engineering to develop the equipment that can detect what we call these amyloids, AMYL OID. And if you watch any kind of television, you see that now. I'm starting to see it on the ads on television shows. I want to get back now to something a little, for me, it's interesting because it's not just the science and the chemistry. It's about the philosophy of why philosophy is so darned important in developing the technology and developing the way to get around Alzheimer's diseases and just plain senility, just plain degeneration and all that. Sometimes I can't. I know so many words. They're packed in my brain. And what happens, I do know what happens, is that the synapses that connect two neurons that have memory of certain information, if you don't use those synapses every day in your career anymore, the brain puts them in kind of storage until you need to start using them again. So one key that I just learned this past few days ago from one of my neurological health practitioners is concerned when I was 32. No, what she said was one of my findings in the recent tests. I did blood tests on you. I did an MRI on your body, your head, your brain, and the only thing I could discover, Dr. V, is that you're pretty normal and you're not in danger of these dementia processes. In other words, she's saying, I'm fine so far. Keep doing what you're doing. So that's what's happening. But she did say one thing I did discover about you, Dr. V, is that you have a pretty advanced case of arthritis right in your shoulders and your neck area. Did you know that? I said, tell me something else I didn't know. I was informed of that when I was 32 years old in a regular health checkup. And I think I was having some problems with shoulder pain because I was getting more used to riding my 10-speed racing bicycle around the campus to get to. It was a big campus. And I said, well, that's what I got told back then. And I said, well, how can that be? I have arthritis. I says, I'm only 32. It's just, and the physician said, the 32 is middle age in the medical profession. That's where middle age begins, is late 20s, early 30s. I said, really? And then I didn't think any more of it. But
Yeah.
because of how I think and use my mind, I don't get hysterical about words. Even if the physician says, oh, you've got arthritis, I just say, oh, okay. And then I didn't worry about it. I'm now convinced
Yeah.
that's why it never affected me as an older person. It doesn't affect me particularly because I don't give it energy. Once I hear the word for it, I think that's the kiss of doom for a lot of us human beings is we grab onto that word and say, oh, dear Lord, I have arthritis. And I wake up with that every day or once a week, oh, I have arthritis, which just brings on more encouragement of the body to get arthritis. And because I didn't do it, I didn't get more arthritis, or the arthritis I had didn't bother me. So, and I think that's one plus of my having swum on a nearly daily basis
Yep.
up into eldership, older age. So I don't even hang on that when, so if someone else has senior moments, I don't have senior moments. I just said, oh, okay. All right. So it is. I move on. Now, how's this coming through to you, my colleague Jill? Um,
Amazing. And by the way, can we tell everyone that they can call us? Is that okay?
oh
Um,
yes,
Right,
yes,
the lines are open six three
got
one
to do
three zero
that.
seven 4010 631 307 4010. Hold on. The lines are open for our friend Dr. Grant Venerable, who always is
Yeah.
just fascinating. Let me ask this. I mean, You sit here and you have the world in front of you. You've seen so much, you've done so much, right? Is there something today that you still want to accomplish? I mean, I know you're writing your memoirs. Is there something else still on that bucket list for you?
Yes, it keeps increasing what I have on that list. So it isn't even a bucket yet. Um,
Ah,
and I did see the movie with uh, Garrett Morgan and his older male friend on there, and what's his Jack? What's Jack's name? One of the great actors
Jack
was
Nicholson.
here. Nicholson,
There you go.
and
Yeah.
and they both had bucket lists, and they had marriages going, they had families, they had grandchildren, and that was one of the most delightful movies I've ever seen, and I'm glad that I saw it. And um, Morgan, is that his last name? I think it is.
Morgan. No, Craig Morgan is the country singer. What's the first name? What did you just say?
Garrett,
Is it Garrett
because he was
Morgan?
on the news feed today, and
Garrett Morgan. Hold on, Doom. I'm going to Google Garrett Morgan. I'm thinking Morgan Freeman. I'm sorry. Garrett
Morgan
Morgan,
Freeman.
American
That's it.
inventor. Oh, it is
I
Morgan
knew
Freeman. Yes, that's
it
it.
is Morgan. It is Morgan Freeman, right? That's another thing. Um, I don't sweat if I don't quite remember a name as quickly as I want.
I know, and I
I
thank goodness
know
for AI and Google. I can't, right? Mm-hmm.
I know it'll be there in a moment or maybe in a week, but so I don't sweat it. And I think that's the key. Just don't sweat it. Morgan Freeman, geez. I think one of the yeah, Jack Nicholson, he was on that. And that was the last scene in that movie when it was Nicholson. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm not good at
Yeah,
the
he went up
movies.
there. He went up there on the top of Mount Everest and put the little urn of ashes of his buddy Morgan Freeman in there,
Uh-huh.
and he delivered the eulogy that on
Really?
Morgan, that whoever the character he was playing on there. And then, the at least Morgan Freeman's wife in the movie was she couldn't understand why he had to have that, last burst of childhood or young manhood. And she was able to get him on the phone in some faraway place like Casablanca. And she talked
Yes.
to Nicholson to get my husband back to me, please. And
Aw.
all that, it came together. And when he did get back, and he, and that's when he passed away. But he had done it all.
Mm-hmm.
And gee, it makes me teary just to think about that,
Aw.
and getting to do, and that's the key to it. When you're looking for a job, if you're a young person, you're presenting yourself on the job market, don't get hooked up with all of the blather that's coming out there. That they give you lists of companies or universities that have a better track record of putting someone in a job where you can make a pretty good income. Don't look at the income as a primary concern. You look at what makes your heart dance. And
Mm-hmm.
there may be a higher paying profession that it will not make your heart dance. So you start with what will make your heart dance. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everyone listening to us knows exactly what I'm talking about. But the whole public pressure that's put on us is money, money first. Get a high paying job. Well, it so happened when I went to this particular startup company, I had been making a university associate professor salary at around $20,000 a
Wow.
year back in the 19 late 70s. And when I got this job with this company, this great startup, I started making 40, 41,000 a year. And
Wow.
my brain was dazzled. But that wasn't what my goal was. I didn't apply for a higher salary or a high salary. They just said, this is what we're going to offer you. And it was beyond what I could even hope for. But
Yeah.
what was not beyond was the challenge, the creative challenge of being surrounded by coworkers who
Oh,
were open.
hold on. We have a call coming in. Stand by. Hello. Welcome to the show. You are live on the line. Who's this?
Hi, this is Sean. How are you?
Hi, Sean. How are you?
John,
You are live on the line with
Okay.
Dr. Grant Venerable. How can we help you?
Yeah, hi. First of all, Dr. Venerable, congrats on the move. I heard you mention it earlier. Where were you living in? Where are you now?
I was in Metro Atlanta, Georgia, for 26
Oh,
years. I
Atlanta's great.
was
Yeah, I
I
love
was
Atlanta.
south
Okay.
in the now I was in the other direction. That's north
Oh,
of
Alpharetta?
Atlanta downtown, and I was south near Peachtree City, which is like
Oh, sure.
30 miles south of downtown Atlanta. Beautiful area, utterly beautiful. A lot of zippity doo dah scenery, like from the movie Joel Chandler Harris's book, The Song of the South, and Tales of Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear. And the scenery near where I lived actually looked that way, with white fences, uh,
Aw.
with green pastures and uh, water wheels to grind the grain, and ponds behind the water wheel, and a lot of streams in that part of Georgia, from middle Georgia up to north Georgia. So that's where
Yeah,
I was.
I know that area pretty well. I have an uncle that lives down that way, and he's
Oh,
in Marietta. He was in Alpharetta, and now he's in Marietta, so I know the area
beautiful,
pretty well. Yeah, it's
gorgeous
absolutely great.
areas.
And so you
Well,
mentioned you're in California now?
I'm pretty much, which is my native state, and I grew up in Los Angeles, born and raised in Los Angeles. Um, we were Disney kids. My parents would only let us see good quality
Aw.
movies that didn't scare us to death
Yep.
about anything. But the all whatever Walt Disney would do, my parents would let us go see those movies because they filled your mind with happy episodes and good stories about good-hearted people. Even Snow White, which had its scary parts with the seven dwarfs, and even that came out, Cinderella, all that kind of thing.
So
But
where in
please,
California are you?
Oh, he's
I am
asking.
Where in
now
California are you now?
back in the Southern California area, not Los Angeles, but in the high desert above Palm Springs, on the other side of Joshua Tree National Monument.
Ooh.
So it's a very dry heat here, and Georgia,
Oh, okay.
Atlanta, is a very moist
It
heat,
gets humid down there, right?
and
Yeah, for sure. Very wet.
so and
But
yeah, yeah.
so meanwhile, I see that you're a chemist. I mean, do you believe in like chemistry, like between people?
Say that again. To how what?
Do you believe in like that? You can have chemistry between people.
Oh, yes. Yes. I know that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, is it so that it's like there's definitely sparks. Like a person could have a spark with another person.
Right.
I definitely yeah. So I wasn't sure like how that worked because I know chemistry like everyone thinks of chemistry as like like in a lab or something like that. But this is
Correct.
chemistry
Yeah.
between two people is
Right.
different, right?
Um, One way I handle that in teaching intro chemistry was how I introduced the technical chemistry to the class.
Oh.
And my instincts and my mentors said, don't throw all that abstract stuff at them all at once at the start. Get them more comfortable in your classroom, in your presence. Recite a good poem like Emily Dickinson, like microscopes are fine for in an emergency, but um, that's how the poem began. But have good poetry there to develop
That's
the mind.
cool.
So my interest was always developing the whole mind, not just the technical memorizing mind to rote memorize the elements and their atomic numbers and atomic masses, but how does that relate to who you are? Are you a system on yourself? You're made of molecules, aren't you? And all your molecules are made of atoms, and those are more elements. Poets always write about elements, and they're not always chemical elements, but there's a relationship there. So, what else can I answer here?
What else? Anything else?
All right. No, I think that was pretty much it. I really appreciated the opportunity to
Okay.
speak with you.
All
It was a
right.
Oh,
pleasure.
Thank you
you're
so much for
welcome.
calling. We appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. All right. And again, anyone else would like to call? 631 307 4010. That's 631 307 4010.
So, Jill, along those lines, what Sean was asking about, I knew I was getting deep when I was reading D.H. Lawrence passages to my classes. Let's get this class meeting today started with D.H. Lawrence, Song of a Man Who Came Through. And that has to do with the Hebrides over these mythological islands over in the Greek region of the Mediterranean Sea. But the poem is really an allegory on how a male human being grows up. Now, female human beings have their own allegories, and that's why I like to read Edna St. Vincent Millay and other of the female writers like Toni Morrison and various other authors. But it talks to a male human, especially when they reach their 30s, because 30s is about starting to look at becoming 40s and getting things right in your life, particularly right with your relationships, and especially with life with the other people on the planet, no matter what sex they are. And getting it right, I'm referring to understand what makes yourself human, what makes you attracted to other humans, what makes you able to get along with other humans, what gives you that light around your being that attracts the kinds of humans you want to be around, that you enjoy being around. And if you get that right, before you hit your 50s, you'll probably survive to reach your 60s and higher. So that's why I like the arts and literature, is to be able to converse on topics like that.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Well, we still got just only 3 more minutes left in the show. Unfortunately, we do have to kind of wrap up soon, but the phones are open if anyone is going to call. In the
Okay,
meantime,
you
how does
said
you?
3 minutes,
Yeah, we
Jill?
got 3 minutes. Sorry, not much.
Well, I'm glad I got to say what I had to say about getting the right job and letting your heart get a job that makes your heart dance, and not a job that just pays you a high salary. Get a good salary, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a billionaire to be happy, um, and you don't have to go to Harvard or Berkeley. You can go to Cal State Los Angeles right here. You can go to a good community college. So yes,
Well,
and it's good to be back here in Southern California. I think in this week I'll begin to be able to unpack start unpacking my boxes that I just realized I packed them over a year ago before I left Georgia, but I haven't had a space where I could unpack them until this place I'm in has been reconstructed so that I can live here, my siblings and my sister's family could live here. So that's what's happening. It's
Aw.
very delightful.
Well, thank you again for being here and best of luck to you. How can we reach you, Grant? Tell us one more time.
We'll try on my website, grantvenerable.com. No, Grant Venerable PhD, all lowercase, .com. And also my email, ventwo@aol.com, and put a podcast question in the subject line,
Perfect.
and that will do it.
All right.
But the
Well, Grant, thank you again. Have a fantastic one. Good luck unpacking, and we'll connect again next week. Thank you again to our caller for calling in. Sean, I think was your name. And enjoy the rest of your day. God bless, God send, Godspeed. And thank you again, Grant. Enjoy the rest of your day,
Okay.
sweetie. Bye. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.